but there was a need to say, okay, we need to fix that cost thing. So as long as the cheapest wins, we don't really need to talk about sustainability. And then, like, probably as one big change back in June or July 2016, when the Capitals Coalition was founded and the Natural Capital Protocol was launched in London by the big four, KPMG, EY, Pricewaterhouse, and Deloitte. That sort of changed a bit, because all of a sudden there was this new group of allies, banks, financial auditors, insurances, who said, hang on a minute, there is something like natural capital. This is real. This is not just a market trend. Carbon is a risk to supply chains. Water scarcity, is a risk to supply chains. And this is a bit how I feel today. We are not there yet, but there's a lot of pressure, because people realize, it's like sustainable regenerative agriculture is not an option. Yeah, it's a must, because everything else is too expensive, purely economically. That's a bit how I feel it. So it's a lot of tailwind to push us, lots of requests from interesting companies, organizations. And I mean, who would have thought that financial auditors are the biggest supporters of compost and regenerative agriculture? So they love it because it reduces climate risk. And that's maybe in a nutshell how I saw the transition of the last 10 years.
I think there's a shift, and that is growing. There's a groundswell. We're far from it today, so there's still a lot that needs to be done. And in general, I think on one hand side, we need metrics, we need means and innovation and financial innovations to be able to monetize. On the other hand side, we also need a fundamental paradigm shift, because actually a lot of those metrics and a lot of those financial means stem from this very anthropocentric and Newtonian mindset. And we're trying to shift the mindset.
So we have a lot of different great examples coming from the industry, that's true, but still they're really interested to be proactive, but to leverage really regenerative agriculture. The key aspect that comes in every conversation is really to put the farmer and landowners at the core of the topic, because if you do this without having the engagement of the farmers, then the topic is meant to collapse at the end. So really need to put every farmer in the center of the conversation, discussion, and implementation of the solution.
This is where it's actually really tricky. I mean, if you're looking at a market's perspective of creating a trading system, of creating a contract that is something that could potentially create liquidity that there will be demand for, that's one thing. The other thing is how to actually connect that to the ground, to the farmers, so that one, they're able to get that access to that cash, and two, whoever's buying that credit is actually getting something of value that means something to decarbonize their supply chain or their supply web. I think there's still a lot of development that needs to be done in terms of how carbon markets work, so that the farmers are getting the benefits, so that they're getting the access to the financial resources required in order to transition to regenerative practices, but in a way that's not going to make them, put them in a worse position a few years down the line than they're already in.